Well, good day and welcome to you. It is February the 24th, 2025. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. I also want to just take a quick moment and just let everybody know who's interested in knowing more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, knowing more about his priorities. If you want to see if there's any truth to this information for yourself, that the best thing to do after listening to a video or two is to do your own investigation and check it out for yourself. If you check out the information on some of the sites that I provided links for in the description portion of these videos, you can get some really good background information about what I talk about, especially if you go to the Share International site. Link is at the very top. I think that's the best one to start off with. You want to come back and join the discussion? Let me know what you think. Post a comment. Ask a question by posting your question in the comments section, or you can email me that question to searchforsigns@mail.com. Now, Miss Ruby, you have been on a commenting tirade here for a bit, and I really do appreciate all your comments, but I wanted to talk about a few of them. And I'll start off with this one because I think it's kind of funny. You said, funny, there's a thing called Maitreya technology. Google it yourself if you don't believe me. And I did Google it, and if you're interested in Maitreya technology, Google it for yourself. I don't really see a connection between the Maitreya that I'm talking about and this technology, but maybe you do. I mean, the name Maitreya has been around for a very, very long time. And if someone is familiar with Buddhist texts, they would have read about Maitreya and what Maitreya means for humanity and in that way and so forth. And perhaps that was the name they wanted to use for the technology. Just as here in Atlanta, if you look in the phone book, there's probably a Jesus's tree removal or a Jesus's painting or something like that. And the funny thing about that is, some years ago, it wasn't Jesus's painting, but it was called Jose's painting. But some years ago, when I was with the Share International group, we had decided to start advertising this information on a local television channel. And I went around to some of the television stations to try to get approval for an ad running, because it was kind of a controversial ad. They had no problem running ads about adult numbers or whatever, but when it came to something like this, they didn't, a lot of them said, no, I can't do that, right? But there was this one station, it was a local CBS affiliate, said, sure, well, we'll run it. And then we decided to run it on the late night ads because we couldn't really afford the 100 or so or 200 or so cost of a 30-second ad on prime time or at a better time. So anyway, we went with the cheapest slot, which was late night. Then I went back to the group and we were like, what are we going to do? So what do we want these people to do after hearing an ad? Well, we wanted them to call a number and perhaps get some more information, right? And so we put a number on there. We got a number from a voicemail company, and we leased that number and we leased the voicemail from them. And if you're someone who's probably under the age of 40, you probably don't realize that there was a time when you could actually lease a number in a voicemail. You know what I mean? You don't really do that now, right? I don't even know if there's any companies that offer those services, but back in the day you could. So we went to this company and I got the number, and then I recorded a 1 or 2 minute greeting. I can't remember how long it was, about Maitreya, about the masters coming back into the everyday world, the many miracle signs, the need for peace, the one awaited by all the world's religions, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, we just had it up and we hadn't even started running any ads yet. Anyway, we started getting calls. I'm like, where are we getting these calls from? We actually got quite a few. And it was so funny because they would listen to the message all the way through, and then they would say, well, that's weird. Hey, will you tell Jose that we loved the way that he painted our dining room? We thought it was great. Our friends that came over for dinner that night thought it was wonderful the way he painted it, and they want him to paint their rooms too, or whatever it was, right? And then other people would just call and listen to the whole message, and then right before they hung up, they go, click. So it was just kind of funny. We got some free advertisements from Jose's painting. So if you're in Atlanta, you need a painter, I'll return the favor. Check out Jose's painting because you're still in business. I've actually seen some billboards around Atlanta. But anyway, thank you very much for the comment. Now let's get on to another one that you had. You said, protect the gift. Franchot Blue, content creator. The gift is your own personal light. And then it says, edit, our immune systems are also a gift. And that is sure a truth that our immune systems are a gift. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this has to do with the invisible peril that Maitreya will stress is really the most important thing that humanity needs to tackle first. If it's not one of the first things that he's going to talk about, it's really going to be in the top 2 or 3 things that he says. I'm sure the first thing is the need for peace. The need is try the principle of sharing. And then to tackle the environmental problem. Most environmentalists, when they talk about the problem that's really serious that could end life on this planet, it has to do with global warming, which a lot of what they're saying is true. The masters would say it's about 80% caused by man, 20% caused by natural causes. And it is creating a lot of damage to the environment, to animal species, to plant species, and of course to humanity. And if left unchecked, could harm the world enough to where it could, cause life to end on this planet, if we're not careful. But Maitreya is going to say something that nobody's talking about, and that is this invisible peril caused by nuclear radiation. Now, the reason why nobody's talking about it is because the only thing that we have to use to measure nuclear radiation is a Geiger counter, which only measures radiation up to gas, solid, liquid, and gas. So if there's dirt that has radioactive material in it, it would, of course, pick that up. Water, the same thing, or gas, the same thing. But when it comes to the 4 levels of physicality above gas, called the etheric, there's no way of measuring it. Now, if you don't believe that there's a level of physicality above gas, check out a man named Wilhelm Reich, who actually 100 or so years ago stumbled across quite astounding scientific discovery that nobody talks about too. He discovered a level of physicality above gas. He called it the orgon. But their masters would say there's actually 4 orgons or 4 levels of etheric. And that radiation that's killing humanity off, killing all the animals off, killing plants off, is all because that radiation is so light and fine, goes right past the concrete, right past the lead, and goes into our atmosphere. So every cloud, every raindrop is saturated with this radiation. Of course, gets into our food supply, gets into our water supply. We breathe it in and breathe it out every time we breathe. And it doesn't matter where you are on the planet. It doesn't matter what color your skin is, how much money you have. You're breathing in this radiation in and out. And if it wasn't for our immune system, we would be really, really in sorry shape. If it wasn't for the work and activity of the Space Brothers, who are here helping to clean up our atmosphere, we would be even sorrier shape than we are today. But Maitreya will stress the need to shut down all our nuclear power plants because of how dangerous they are. Like I said, we are totally ignorant as a humanity, en masse. We are totally ignorant of how dangerous the way that we process nuclear power is. The funny thing is that we already have the technology to produce nuclear power cleanly, effectively, and with much more stability than we do today, where the byproduct would be clean drinking water and not this very, very hot material that just sits in our ground and pollutes our ground in the way that it does. But anyway, it is a gift for sure. And, it's funny because, well, it's not funny. It's funny. It's only funny because it's sad. But our world leaders are so ignorant of how dangerous it is that they want to build even more power plants, nuclear power plants. Elon Musk even wants to send a nuclear missile to Mars and detonate it on Mars to help terraform Mars. He's totally ignorant of the fact that there's 9.5 billion people living on Mars at the moment. They're living on the etheric planes, but that radiation would affect them in that way. I don't think he'll ever be able to do what he wants to do, but it just shows how stupid our world leaders are, really. Anyway, so thank you very much for the comments. All right, let's get on to another thing you said. You said there are 2 white horses in the book of Revelation. The first one is who you're referring to. Edit, Trump is the rider on the first white horse. Is he? I don't know. If you go back just another, 20 years ago, Trump really wasn't on the political scene in that way. People thought it was somebody different. I know, and you can still see the videos because they're still up on YouTube, people thought that Obama was the Antichrist. We project onto others exactly who and what we are, and every time we think that somebody is the Antichrist, invariably there's somebody that's different than us politically, different than us perhaps spiritually or religiously, and that's why we think that they are who they are. But we really, the truths that what we take to be true is really how we see life, right? Wouldn't you say? And what we read and what we read into the Bible, for instance, because we're talking about Revelation, is really who and what we are. So if you're somebody who's scared about the future, scared about the end times, well, of course, you'll see the end times in everything. Every little thing that goes on. Oh, that's because it says it in the Bible that's the end times, when it really probably doesn't. You know? And if you really looked at Revelation and really what it was meant to be written as, it was really meant to be taken in as the most hopeful book in the Bible. Why do I say that? Well, it's because John was talking about the time when humanity would come together as one humanity under the inspiration and leadership of the Christ. Of course, we would go through some tumultuous times before we get there, and we've gone through a lot of those things, but that's really what it was amounting to. It's not about the end of the world that so many Christians think that he was talking about. It always cracks me up when people say, well, John was very clear about this, or the Bible's very clear about this. No, the Bible's not very clear about very much, if anything. A lot of it is left to interpretation. And if you interpret it through the eyes of fear, well, then that's what you're going to see. If you interpret it through the eyes of love and hope, well, then that's what you're going to see. To talk about it in another way, Maitreya says, as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. So really, who created whom? Did God create man or did man create God? And I think it's really man created God. Now, I'm not saying that in a blasphemous kind of way, because there is this thing called all of cosmos, right? That was created by some kind of intelligence. Scientists is trying to discover why it came into being. Religious folks that don't have any concern about science are trying to explain it in their own way. But there is this thing called life, right? There's this thing called the universe out there, right? I mean, we live it every day. We see it every day. So something happened, right? But the God that we create these ideologies around, whether it's individually or as a group, is really who and what we are. If we went back 5,000, 10,000 years ago, our gods were hunters. Our gods we prayed to were hunters that would give us and grant us the fortune of a good hunt or a good feast. I've literally never prayed to a god for a good hunt because I'm not a hunter. You know what I mean? If I was, I would. You know, I also would say that, talking about it from my perspective, I want peace in the world. I see that humanity is one. Well, of course, the God that I pray to wants peace and wants oneness on this planet too, right? And I've never once prayed to God to smite all those who worship Allah, because I think Islam is inherently evil. I've never done that because I don't see Islam as evil. I do realize there are people who perpetrate evil in the name of Islam, just as there's people who perpetrate evil in the name of Christianity or whatever, but I don't wish them any ill will in that regard, right? So the gods that I don't pray to a God that wants that. My God supports my view on things, right? So I'm just as guilty of it as everybody else. But there's those people who view Christianity and Jesus as their God, and yet are very capitalistic. Think business and the free markets is the crown jewel of economic ideologies. That there's no other higher, form of economic structure than capitalism. It provides all the needs for all the people. This is what they think ideologically, right? They think that it provides all the needs for everyone. All you need to do is just go along with the system, lift yourself up by the bootstraps, and you'll have what everybody else has, right? And then you have those people who are super rich and those people who are super poor. Well, that's just the market working itself out. And let bygones be bygones, right? And Jesus, if you but read into the Bible, because the Bible's very clear about this, that Jesus actually was a capitalist. He expected to get paid for what he did. He expected to be paid handsomely for what he did, right? This is what they think. And I'm saying this in kind of a sarcastic way, but this is kind of what people think about things, right? When if they read in the Bible that Jesus actually wasn't a capitalist at all, he really was more of a communist in a lot of ways. Give of all your wealth to the poor. Sounds communistic to me, right? And if you talk to somebody who has a hard time connecting the two, they would just say, oh, well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't apply to today. But yet all the things from the Old Testament that were spoken of about homosexuality is an abomination, eating shrimp is an abomination, touching the skin of a dead pig is an abomination. Well, that applies to today or something. I don't know. But when it comes to economic disparities that Jesus was trying to bring about justice of his time, Well, that doesn't apply to today. Anyway, but what we read into whatever is what we read into. But I do think that when you are looking for the Antichrist, like so many people are today, well, of course, your gaze is going to land on someone that's in the media. And today, Donald Trump is all throughout the media, right? I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see something in my YouTube feed about Donald Trump. I mean, he's all over the place. He has gotten exactly what he wanted. All the eyes are on him, really, to be honest. And because he's got such an ego and he's such a narcissist that he has to have all that attention all the time, or he acts like a petulant child, really. But I don't think that makes him the Antichrist. I don't think that he was predicted in the Bible to do anything, because I don't think they were even looking at him like that. But yet people project that onto him because they're perhaps against Donald Trump. Well, he must be the Antichrist. If they're for Donald Trump, well, then he was handpicked by Jesus himself. You know, those AI images of Jesus standing behind Donald Trump, he has that scowl like he used to have in The Apprentice when he would fire somebody, and Jesus is lovingly touching his shoulder, and those AI photos, right? And that's true. That actually happened. That was actually a photo that they took. No, it was all AI, right? But everything that Donald Trump does, whether it's dehumanize a group of people or belittle someone or outright insult someone, or threaten someone, or speak in an authoritarian way, well, then they just wash it under the rug because they think that Donald Trump was handpicked by Jesus. So he must be doing the right thing. That's the right thing to do. When in reality, it isn't the right thing to do. Now, if he was speaking about love and talking about loving and coming together, and there was all these people against him, well, then I would say, yeah, he's probably like Jesus or like Martin Luther King, but they're trying to put him on that level, but yet he's not talking about those things. He's just talking about himself all the time, right? And then insulting other people in those ways. But like I said, I don't think that makes him the Antichrist. But what is the Antichrist? I talk about this from time to time because it obviously comes up a lot. First and foremost, I understand Maitreya is the Antichrist, of course, right? Because they're misinterpreting their own scriptures. But the Antichrist is an energy. And it was an energy that was released through Nero. That was the first time it happened. And the purpose of the Antichrist is to destroy the old ways of thinking and relating, to allow a new way of thinking and relating to occur. So if we step back and really took a really big step backwards and looked at what happened right at the end of the Roman dispensation, is it allowed a new way of thinking to start to flourish. To where now today, pretty much all of humanity sees itself as an individual, living amongst billions of other individuals, which isn't what happened before. You know, before that time, we didn't see ourselves like that. We really honestly didn't see ourselves like that. We were totally ignorant of ourselves, totally ignorant of life on the other side of the hill, let alone on the other side of the world. We had no idea what was going on a moment-to-moment basis, but that's where we're living today. That's how far we've come in the last 2,000 years. And it was really because of that Antichrist energy destroying the Roman dispensation of things. If you were to go back just 80 years ago, during the time of World War I and World War II, well, then that also was another time that the Antichrist energy was released. You know, it was very destructive. It devastated Europe twice, but it was released to destroy the old ways of thinking of the past, of Pisces, to allow a new way of thinking. So if we went just back, even just 100 years ago or 150 years ago, we think totally different than we did then. We see each other totally different than we did then. Are we perfect in our own way? No, but we are far more advanced than we were even then. Our technology has advanced quicker than you could possibly have imagined since the last 80 to 100 years. We communicate with such ease now all over the world. We see what's happening in the world at any moment. We have a better understanding of what's going on in the world. And this is all a direct result of that energy. And so over the next 2,000 years of the age of Aquarius, if we could fast forward ourselves to the end of that time, we would look back and not be able to relate to how we think today. I'm sure some questions that will come up for children in classrooms at that time is, how could we have possibly, as a humanity, lived in the world that we live in today with so much war, so much terrorism, crime, violence, so much tension all the time, so much stress, all that. How could we have lived like that? How could we have called ourselves man or human and yet allow someone to literally starve to death and not be affected by that? How could we do that? These are questions that we will ask ourselves, in the future. And it's because this energy destroyed the ways of thinking and relating to one another. So we're still in the throes of that destructive energy in terms of destroying the way that we're thinking, but it's also, you can see the flourishing of a new way of thinking. Even probably within yourself, you can see a new way of thinking. So anyway, that's why that energy is there. So it's not an individual. People who are looking for the Antichrist as an individual will never find it, because there's never going to be an Antichrist as an individual. And those people who are waiting for the Antichrist to come back, well, they've missed the mark, because it's already happened. It happened, the last time was, like I said, 80 to 100 years ago. So, and then somebody commented and said, Maitreya equals Antichrist. And again, I understand that line of thinking, but in reality, if Maitreya was the Antichrist, he sucks at being an Antichrist, because nobody knows who he is. He's not saying who he is. He's not boastful. He doesn't have the mouth of a lion, as it says in the Bible, as people attribute to the Antichrist. Do you see what I'm saying? So if you go back and even just read and misinterpret what it says about the Antichrist, Maitreya doesn't even fit that bill. But anyway, that's on my own take on it. And then when it comes to people like Donald Trump, when we think he's the Antichrist, well, then we are totally shut down and feel afraid to stand up to him. Well, it says in the Bible that the Antichrist will be successful at everything. Has Donald Trump been successful at everything he does? Trump steaks, Trump vodka, right? Trump University, Trump charity, right? Even the Trump casinos all went kaput because of his misuse and mismanagement of those things. He's an awful businessman. Not everything he does is successful. Our world leaders need, I think, in a healthy democracy, need people standing up and criticizing our world leaders. That's what a healthy democracy is. If you think he's the Antichrist, well, then you're not going to do that. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I love you guys. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your questions and your comments. And I look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.